Hi everyone, I am Santosh Kumar DK, Assistant Professor, Department of Computer Science and Engineering, Canara Engineering College. In this video, we are going to discuss Big Data Analytics 17 CS 82, a course update from the 8th semester. The study material regarding this course is available on my site, which is highlighted over here. In previous video, we have discussed Hadoop, managing Hadoop with Apache Ambari, where we have seen how to configure using the web UI. In this video, we will discuss basic Hadoop administration procedures. If we have installed the Apache Ambari web management tool, which we have already discussed in the previous video, it's better to do the day-to-day management through the Apache Ambari rather than doing through the command-based. As I have told, it is a tedious job to do through command-based. And if it comes to Hadoop administration, there are mainly two areas where Hadoop administration will be done. One is the Yarn resource management, and the second one is the HDFS file system. So these two are the main areas where we can apply the administration procedures. Other applications like MapReduce and all, we have already done during the installation configuration. You might have remembered I told you to refer either chapter 2 from the textbook or from my website, where the configuration is given. So where we are going to edit some XML files. Again, if you are having Apache Ambari installed, you can edit these using the web UI. These files can be modified using the web UI, or else you can use any editor on your machine. You can edit these XML files. All the configurations on Hadoop is stored in the XML files. One is the core default XML file, which is going to set the system-wide properties, and the HDFS default properties are set by the HDFS-default XML. MapReduce properties and the Yarn framework configuration are going to be set by the MapReduce MapRed -default.xml file, and Yarn properties in detail. Yarn properties will be set by the Yarn-default XML file. We'll see these configuration are given again in the demonstration of configuring Hadoop. We'll see Yarn administration and HDFS administration in this discussion. Yarn has several built-in administrative features and commands. To find out more about these, we can even refer the Apache documents on the Yarn administration. But few we will discuss over here. One which is listed out of them, 7 are listed over here. So we'll see one by one all these. First is decommissioning Yarn nodes. If a node manager or a host needs to be removed from the cluster, it should be decommissioned from the list. I'm having a cluster, I'm having 4 nodes, and one node I want to remove. That is possible with the help of decommissioning. Assuming the node is responding, you can easily decommissionize it from the Ambari web UI also. We have seen the web UI in the previous video, how it looks. Simple, go to the host view, click on the host and select a decommissionization from the pull down menu next to the node manager component. Note that host may also be acting as a HDFS data node. Use the Ambari host view to decommissionize the HDFS host in a similar fashion. This is how you can remove a node from the cluster. Next is a Yarn web proxy. The web application proxy is separate proxy server in a Yarn that addresses the security issues with the cluster web interface on the application master. By default, the proxy runs as a part of the resource manager itself, but it can be configured to the run in a standalone mode. But adding the configuration property in yarn.web-proxy.address to yarn-site XML file can configure the yarn web proxy. In the standalone mode, yarn.web-proxy.principal and yarn.web-proxy.keytab control the Kerberos principles. Kerberos is the security framework that can be configured using these two files. And next, how to use the job history server. The removal of the job tracker and migration of the MapReduce from the system to an application level framework necessitated creation of a place store MapReduce job history. The job history server provides all the yarn MapReduce applications with a center location in which to aggregate complete jobs for the historical references and debugging. The setting of these job history server can be found in the file mapred-site.xml file. Just they are telling where we can go and we can edit the content. Next, managing the yarn jobs. Yarn jobs can be managed using the yarn application command. Yarn space application is the command which comes with the options -kill, which is going to kill the application, -list, which is going to list the yarn jobs, and -status, which will give the status of all the applications which are running on the yarn application. A MapReduce jobs can also be controlled with the MapRed job command. Here yarn jobs we have discussed. Similarly, even MapRed also be controlled using the MapRed space job command, which also comes with the options of skill list and status. Next, we'll see setting container memory. We spoke about container in the when we are discussing about yarn application in second video. So how to set the container memory? Yarn manages application resources, containers over the entire cluster. Controlling the amount of container memory takes place through the three important values in the yarn-site.xml file, which I have shown in the previous slide, where the first important value is yarn.nodemanager.resource.memory-mb. This is the one important value which is going to set the amount of memory the node manager can use for a container. If you want to say out of this memory how much you can use it for a container, that you have to set it with the parameter yarn.nodemanager.resource.memory-mb. And similarly, you can also set scheduler.minimum-allocation-mb is the smallest allowed by the resource manager. A request container smaller than this value will result in a allocation container of this size 1024 MB. Here you can set the minimum size of the container. Similarly, you can set the maximum size of the container by the resource manager by using the command yarn.maximum-allocation-mb. These three things you have to edit in the XML file yarn-site.xml. These values you have to set it over there, and the minimum value over there is by default. For minimum it is 1024 MB and for the maximum it is 8192 MB. It means 8. And next, setting the container cores. When you are working on a multi-core architecture, how many cores should be allocated for a given container to complete the application? So that is also again you are going to write it on the yarn-site.xml file with the following properties. So what are the properties I have to set? Yarn dot scheduler dot minimum hyphen allocation hyphen v course is the one which is going to set the minimum allocation for every container request at a resource manager in terms of virtual CPU cores. It's going to set the virtual CPU cores. Request smaller than this allocation will not take effect, and the specified value will be allocated to the minimum number of cores. The default size is 1 core. Similarly, you can set the maximum core also, where the default size is 32 by using the property yarn dot scheduler dot maximum hyphen allocation hyphen v cores. And also you can set the node manager resource CPU cores also. For that you have to use the property yarn dot node manager dot resource dot CPU hyphen v cores, where the number of CPU cores that can be allocated for a container will be set. The default value for this is 8. And finally, setting the MapReduce properties. As noted from the beginning, we are using the MapReduce, and which is running on the top of yarn application. It is also necessary to set some MapReduce configurations by editing the mapred-site.xml. These relate to the map and reduce containers. There are some properties we can set it over here. Let me discuss that. First one is the mapred.child.java.opts. It provides the smaller heap size for the child of Java virtual machine of maps, JVMs. It's going to set the smaller heap size. The heap is used to do the dynamic allocation. Similarly, MapReduce.map.memory.mb provides the larger or smaller resources limits for the maps. By default, it will be 1536 MB. Similarly, you can go with MapReduce.reduce.memory.mb, which provides larger heap size for the child JVM. And by default, this value will be 3072 MB. And next, we are having MapReduce.reduce.java.opts provides a larger or smaller heap size for child reducers. Before we set for the mappers, now we are setting for the reducers. These are all the options and configurations we set on the Hadoop yarn administration. These, again, we can do it in a two-way. One, we can directly go to the respective XML file, we can add the properties. The other one is if we are running with the Apache Ambaric, so we can choose the respective tabs and options, set the values directly. Next, as I said, the second one in the Hadoop administration is HDFS administration, where we can set the around 9 administration configurations. The first one is name node user interface. The name node user interface is used to monitor the HDFS that can be done in several ways. One of the more convenient way to do this is a quick view of HDFS status through the name node user interface. This web view tool provides essential information about the HDFS and offers the capability to browse the HDFS namespace and logs. The web-based UI can be started from within the Ambari or from the web browser connected to the name node. In Ambari, simply select the HDFS service window and click on the quick links. Pull down the menu in the top middle of the page. Select name node UI. The new browser tab will open with UI shown, and where you can edit and you can open that by giving a http://localhost usually the configuration will be done with the port number 50070. There also you can open and you will can check out the summary result of it, and where you will get to know what all the data nodes information and what all the name node information and startup progress. All these details will be given in the name node user interface. Even you can get to know the directory content. For example, we used to use the ls command in the respective directory content to be fetched, right? So similar content can also be fetched from the viewed from the name node user interface by browsing the directories. The next one is adding a user to HDFS. A new user, how to add it to the HDFS. Adding a user, first we have to create a user and we have to add them to the group. For that, what we are going to do is we are going to use a command user add without space, user add space hyphen capital G, and we have to give a group name and we have to give a username to which group they are going to belong to. I'm not writing these commands over here because these are all kind of similar to Unix commands. So I think you have a handy experience with the Unix commands, and some of the commands I have already given a demonstration in the initial videos. So that's why I'll explain, and these we are not trying out also. So that's why I'm explaining the commands. To add the user, first we have to create a user. So first what I have to do is I'm going to add the user to group, then I'm going to create the user. The first user what I'm creating is using the command user add space hyphen G capital G, and to which group I want to add that group name and space the username, which username I want to add it. And how to create a user name directory. We know that how to create a directory, right? We have used Hadoop space hyphen mkdir and slash user or whatever the user, and wherever the location we want, we can use we have to use the explicit path, right? So this we have seen in the demonstration in the first module. Similarly, we can either go with the Hadoop command space hyphen mkdir, or else we can go with the HDFS space DFS space hyphen mkdir, and you can specify the respective path of the user directory. Then finally give the account ownership. How to give the ownership? You remember CHOWN, change ownership, where you are going to set the properties for a given file or for a given directory. That you have to do by using the HDFS space DFS command, or else directly using the Hadoop command. So I'll just tell you how to do this. You can go with the Hadoop space hyphen CHOWN, change ownership, and you have to tell the username colon which group name, and after that slash user and the respective path of the file or folder you want to give it as a access. Next is perform an FSCK on HDFS. What is FSCK? It is a file system check. So to check the health of the HDFS, we have to perform a FSCK check. So for that, we are going to issue a HDFS space FSCK command, and we have to give the path, which directory or which file health we have to check. If we are going to give only slash, it's going to check the root directory of the HDFS, and it's going to tell if it is healthy, it's going to tell the result as the file system under the path is healthy. And if it is having some option, it's going to give the option of moving by giving option hyphen move. To delete the corrupt files, it's going to give hyphen delete, and to print the file which is going to be checked, it's going to give option of hyphen files. Similarly, to open for write option for writing, it's going to give hyphen open for write, and if you want to include the snapshot, it's going to give hyphen include snapshots. And if you want to list the corrupt file blocks, it's going to give hyphen list hyphen corrupt blocks. And if you want to print the block report, it's going to give hyphen block. And if you want to print the locations, it's going to give hyphen location. And if you want to print the locality of the network topology for the racks, it will give you the hyphen racks. Next, balancing the HDFS. Based on the usage patterns and data node availability, the number of data blocks across the data node may become unbalanced. To avoid this overutilized data nodes, the HDFS balancer tool rebalances the data blocks across the availability data nodes. The data blocks are moved from overutilized to underutilized node to within the certain percent of threshold. Rebalancing can be done when new data nodes are added or when a data node is removed from the service. We have seen in the previous AN administration how to add or remove, how to remove the existing data nodes, which does not create a more space in the HDFS, but rather it improves the efficiency. To do that, we are going to use HDFS space balancer command, and to set a threshold limit, we are going to use hyphen threshold option. And with a bandwidth, if you want to set hyphen set balancer bandwidth option. And next is HDFS safe mode. The HDFS safe mode is used when initially a HDFS start running by default. This we have discussed initially in the first module. When a name node starts, it loads the file system state from the FS image, file system image, and then applies to edit log files. It then waits for a data node to report their blocks. During this time, the name node stay in the read-only safe mode. This name node leaves a safe mode automatically after data nodes have reported that most file system blocks are available. The administrator can also place HDFS in a safe mode by giving the command HDFS space DFS admin space hyphen safe mode enter space enter. This is the command HDFS space DFS admin space hyphen safe mode space enter. This command will bring the system HDFS forcibly by the admin to the safe mode. How to bring it back to the normal mode? For that, again HDFS space DFS admin space safe mode space leave. To enter we have used the enter, and to leave we are going to use the leave option. Next, decommissionizing the HDFS nodes. We have seen how to decommissionize the host or nodes. Now we are going to see HDFS nodes. If we need to remove the data nodes or host nodes from the cluster, we should decommissionize it from the list first. Assuming the node is responding, it can be easily decommissionized from the Ambari web UI. Simple to go to the host view, click on the host and select a decommissionizing from the pull down menu next to the data node component, as we did in the yarn. Next, we are having secondary name node. To avoid long name node restarts and other issues, the performance of the secondary name node should be verified. Just recall this, which we have discussed in the first module, that secondary name node takes the previous file system file from the FS image and adds the name node file system, edits to create a new file system image file from the name node to use when it starts. This can be done by editing the hdfs-site.xml file, which we have already discussed. It defines a property called fs.checkpoint.period, which is going to deal with the property provided by the time in second between the secondary name node and the checkpoints. When checkpoint occurs, a new FS image file is created in the directory corresponding to the value of the dfs.nameNode.checkpoint.dir in the HDFS site.xml. This file is also placed in the name node directory corresponding to the dfs.namenode.name.dir path destination in the hdfs-site XML file. The test checkpoint process a short period time can be set by 300 seconds. It can be used for fs.checkpoint.period and HDFS is restarted. After 5 minutes, two identical FS image files should be present in each of the two previously mentioned directories. If these files are not recent or are missing, consult the name node or secondary name node logs. So what issue it's going to face. Once the secondary name node process is confirmed by to be working correctly, reset the FS image by fs.checkpoint.period to the previous value and restart the HDFS. If the secondary name node is not running, checkpoint can be forced by running with the command HDFS space secondary name node space -checkpoint force. Next we'll see HDFS snapshot. The HDFS snapshots are read-only because snapshots and backups cannot be editable because they will be always in the read-only mode. These are read-only point-in-time copies of the HDFS. Snapshot can be taken on a subtree of the file or entire file system. Some common use cases for snapshot are data backups, protection against the user errors, and disaster recovery. Snapshot can be taken on any directory once the directory has been set as a snapshotable. You have to set a respective directory as a snapshotable, then only you can take a snapshot from it. A snapshot directory is able to accommodate around 65,536 simultaneous snapshots. There is no limit on the number of snapshotable directories. Administrator may set any directory to be snapshotable, but nested snapshotable directories are not allowed. For example, directory cannot be set to a snapshotable if one of its ancestor or descendant is snapshotable directory which is already set. The following command will be used to set allow snapshot. HDFS space DFS admin space -all allow snapshot is, and you have to give the explicit path of the directory which you want to make it as a snapshotable. And to create a snapshot, we are going to use HDFS space DFS space -create snapshot, and the explicit path of the directory will create a snapshot. And next we'll see configuring the NFS gateway to HDFS, which we have already seen. NFS is a network file system. That gateway can be directly connected to the HDFS. The HDFS supports NFS version 3 gateway. This feature enables the files to be easily moved between HDFS and the client system. The NFS gateway supports NFS version 3 and allows the HDFS to be mounted as a part of the client local file. Currently, the NFS version 3 gateway supports the capability of user can browse the HDFS file system through their local file system using an NFS version 3 client compatible operating system. They can see what is there in the HDFS file system. User can also download the file from the HDFS file system to their local system. User can also upload the files from their local system to the directly to the HDFS file system. User can stream data directly to HDFS through the mount point. File append is supported, but random write is not supported. This I have told in the first module also. The gateway must be run on a same host as a data node. name node or any HDFS client. And to set this configuration, we are having 3 steps to be followed. First, we have to set a configuration file. What is the configuration file name? That is available in the /etc/hadoop/config core-site.xml. This is the file which is going to be allowing us to set the configuration. As we have used previously, mapred-site.xml, yarn-site.xml. Similarly, we are going to use core-site.xml to set the NFS version 3 gateway, where you can even do this by using the Ambari, where you can go to HDFS service window, select the configuration tab. Towards the bottom screen, select the add property link. In that, you can add the custom core site XML file section and the properties to be added to that. Once you add the properties to the core-site XML, you have to start the gateway. To start the gateway of NFS service, we are going to use service space RPC bind stop. First, we have to stop the binding. Then we have to stop the NFS. Then we have to give the commands of starting. So first we have to come up with the existing mappings of the Hadoop daemons, and then we have to go to the respective Hadoop daemon.sh start port map. This is the daemon which we have to start. Once we stop the RPC bind, then we have to start a daemon hadoop-daemon.sh start NFS3. These are all the 2 daemons which has to start. Once these 2 daemons are started, the NFS daemon will start writing the logs. And after once the NFS version 3 is started, now we can mount NFS version 3 to HDFS. To do that, we are going to make use of the command mkdir space /mnt/HDFS. This is going to create a directory, and mount command will be mount space -t space NFS space -o with a version number 3 with a protocol of TCP and no lock of the respective node will be given. Once after that, if you check out the respective mount of MNT HDFS, you will be getting the files what you have mounted. This is how we are going to set up the configure the NFS gateway to the HDFS. In this, we have discussed YARN administration, HDFS administration, and configuring the NFS gateway version 3 to HDFS. Again, these contents I have discussed from the Douglas Edlin textbook. If you have any doubts, you can go through the textbook and you can go through the study material which I have shared in the website, or else if you have any doubts, you can mail me. If I'm able to answer, I'll answer. Otherwise, we will discuss in the online class. Thank you.